Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I have the Amazing Spider-Man Andrew Garfield in my collection. Like I mentioned with the previous video, I was really worried. I was not sure if I'd be able to get my hands on these because it really seemed like a very hot ticket type of item. And it seemed like something you really had to get there first in order to get it. And that's mostly how it was. It was sold out everywhere. All I could find are MJ's and Matt Murdock's and maybe occasionally a Sandman, but it seemed like no matter where I went, these two were missing. Tom was easy enough to find, but Toby and Andrew were very, not difficult, but it was concerning in the way, like, they were always the ones that were gone. So I was really, really getting paranoid that maybe I'd miss out on it. But luckily, I have him. I found it. I didn't have to search too hard to find this guy. He managed to show up in my local Target without waiting too long. So now I have him, and I'm super excited. And I guess let's just get into it. Starting with the front of the box, you do have this nice retro style packaging. Shows you everything you get in the window right there. Of course, I like this nice retro style card that these figures are on. It looks absolutely wonderful. This one is, for some reason, slightly unique compared to Toby and Tom. This one has the Amazing Spider-Man 2 artwork on the side and on the back. Toby and Tom share the artwork from No Way Home. Maybe that's a licensing thing. I don't know. It doesn't really make too much sense to me, but that is the back of the box. And now we're back to the front of the box. That's it. We can get back right into the figure. Just no more waiting. Let's get into it. Okay, so this is pretty much all you get. Unfortunately, not a lot to go over here. Starting with this nice, beautiful looking head sculpt of Andrew Garfield. It looks absolutely wonderful. This looks exactly like Andrew Garfield, and it's really, really nice to have this head sculpt in the collection, of course. And then, unfortunately, we have two sets of hands. One set is mismatched, so it doesn't really, it's not like the Tom Holland figure where you have two sets, or how many do you have? You have like 4 sets in that figure. You have the fist, you have the wall crawling, and you have the webs, right? I believe, if I remember correctly. Unfortunately, with this guy, you have this kind of maybe like he's holding on to a web or tossing out a web or something. Maybe he's like about to point. You have this one. It looks good. It's nice. It's detailed. The texture feels good. It looks great. And then you have a regular old fist hand, but you don't have anything to go along with this fist hand, and I think that's pretty lame and unfortunate. But on the figure itself, you have these 2 web thwipping hands. Both of them look pretty decent. Nothing spectacular about them. It's stuff that we've seen before, so I'm pretty happy with that. Beyond that, we do have the rest of the suit, I guess. We have this nice looking Spider-Man head sculpt. I do love the look of this head. I like this costume a lot. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 costume specifically. I think it looks really, really cool. I don't know where I was, but yes, we have this wonderful looking costume. The texture of it, as you can see, if I bring it up nice and close, it is very nice and textured. It looks wonderful. Looks exactly like the well, not exactly like the movies. There are some slight differences between the movies, but I think it's a fairly accurate representation of that figure, of that character. I mean, it looks pretty decent and wonderful. You do have these nice web shooters on the wrist. They're not as detailed as I'd like them to be, and it looks kind of awkward because they're on the inside of the wrist, which is where it would be, but when he's thwipping, the wrist kind of points up, whereas this guy, unless he's flipping like that, the wrist doesn't really work that way. You can't, it looks a little weird, is what I'm trying to say. But beyond that, I don't really notice any major paint defects. Everything looks pretty normal. Maybe there's a slight mark right there, a little bleed through right there in the shoulder. Everything looks fine, you know. It looks as good as you would want this figure to look for $20. Let's get that clear. It is $20, so, you know, expectations should be measured, I think. But with that being said, let's go ahead and go over articulation. I think this is, out of the three, the better figure for articulation, just because, gosh, that Tom Holland figure, it's looking like that one's really struggling with breaking. And then the Tobey Maguire figure, it's okay, but it's I don't know. This one just kind of nails it a little bit better than the other two. This one really, as a figure, I think is the best overall. The Tobey, we'll get to it when I get to it, but he is a little wonky, disappointingly so, for a figure I was so excited for. But we'll get to that when we get to it. Starting with this guy, of course. You have the head sculpt going maybe back. That's actually pretty decent. Going forward, that's really decent, actually. Wiggles side to side, rotates all the way around like so. Exactly what you would want out of a head sculpt. The arms come up to about right there. Nothing blocking me, nothing to struggle with right there. I'm not too worried about it breaking when I do that. That's actually pretty high, too. Rotates all the way around. Let's see, a butterfly joint, if we look at it from the top, goes back not super far. Forward, again, not super far. I did see on Instagram somebody doing a modification where they basically pull out the arm and then there's an extra little nub on the arm thing. You just chop that off and it adds significantly more to the articulation. I considered doing that, but I don't know. I don't want to ruin this figure. I love this figure. I don't want to break it. I don't want to accidentally do it wrong and then, then I'm out of a figure. I do have 2 more of these coming in the mail. They're the ones I ordered online before I found these in the store. So whenever those do eventually show up, I will have extras, but I was thinking about keeping those in the box. So maybe I might do that. I also kind of considered, since I have extras, maybe doing black suit variants of these figures, but I have never done anything like that before with paint, so I really don't know if I am capable of doing something like that. Will this rotate? Yeah, okay. I kept pushing it, but it felt like it was going to snap if I pushed it, so let's move on. Double jointed pinless elbows can come up to about right there. Fairly decent articulation in the arms, not compared to Tom, obviously, or compared to Tom, it's significantly better than that figure. That figure worries me every time I move anything. I'm like, oh, it's going to break, it's going to break, it's going to break. This one, buttery smooth. Across the board, everything is moving exactly as it should. This is wonderful. I'm not worried about any of this breaking in the legs and the feet. Everything is moving wonderfully. Wrist goes down, wrist goes up, wrist goes all the way around like so. Same for all the other hand variations. Ab articulation, so we do have this nice nifty new style of ab articulation. So we have the upper diaphragm cut, can wiggle side to side. Back, just a smidge. I'm not going to say that's a lot. Forward, just a hair. Again, not a lot. It just adds a little bit. And then if you add this lower cut, bring it all together, that is pretty spectacular. If you're doing that Spider-Man classic dive thing that he does, of course the camera angle is a little wonky for that, but that classic Spider-Man look from the opening of Spider-Man 2, you can recreate that fairly easily. Same going forward, looking pretty decent. Add the legs into it, of course. That is a fairly deep bend if that you bring the legs back up. Fairly high kick. Can he do the super kick? Yes, he can. That is a pretty good super kick. Of course, this also has the drop down hips, but they're a little... This is the only thing that's a little bit more stiff than the Tom figure and the Green Goblin, I guess. The drop-down hips are slightly worse, I guess. They're not necessary on either figure because they both already have decent articulation. They just add a little bit, but this one seems a little bit more stiff, and it doesn't move as much. You can see it moves maybe a couple millimeters, not even half an inch, which is fine. It adds to the figure no matter what. It's just not anything spectacular or amazing, pun intended. As far as the legs go, double jointed knees goes up to about right there. Swivel at the thigh, rotates all the way around like so. Nothing down here in the lower legs. Ankle goes down, ankle goes up, and slight swivel side to side. And that is the Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, this is, I think out of the three, this one's my favorite, which is ironic because Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is probably my least favorite out of all three of them. Andrew Garfield as a person and his Spider-Man as a character, I love them both, but just compared to the other two, I mean, Tobey is my all-time favorite. Tom, I think, is a wonderful representation of Spider-Man in films that are just maybe not that incredible compared to the other Spider-Man movies. Compared to the first Amazing Spider-Man, I don't know. I go back and forth on that movie. I think it's really good, and then I think it's just okay. I don't think it's better than MCU Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2 is where it completely loses me. That one is just, I cannot give it any praise whatsoever. I lied. The only praise I can give it is it has the best Spider-Man suit across all movies, across most media. And this is, of course, that suit in figure form. So I'm super happy to have this figure. I was worried after we got the Tom suit and it was just a little wonky, a little scary to play with, but this one is significantly better. It feels tight. Like I said, everything, you can move it. I'm not worried about any of this breaking. It moves buttery smooth. I'm not worried about anything snapping. I'm not worried about this leg breaking. I'm not that worried. I guess I'm a little worried that it'll snap, but so far it seems to work out wonderfully. So let me know what you guys think of him down in the comments below. Leave a like, leave a comment, leave a subscribe. All the things YouTubers ask you to do, just do it for me. He's not gonna. I give up. Just do it for me as well, and I will be back with another video, hopefully very, very soon. Bye.